A proposed amendment to the state constitution could be a political game changer in Florida, restoring the voting rights of thousands of convicted felons. Last week, the petition secured the number of signatures required to make it on the 2018 ballot, so now voters will decide if they want it to happen in November. Joining us now to take a look at the potential legal impact that the amendment would have for affected felons, News Channel 8 legal analyst Felix Vega. Good morning to you, Felix.
Good morning, Evan.
So let's start with the number of felons affected. How many are we talking about?
We are talking about a lot. We can take a look at the numbers here. We're talking about in the United States total, there is about 6.1 million affected felons that we're talking about.
Wow.
In Florida, we're looking at 1,686,000. That's 1 in 5 of every affected felon here in the United States. We're one of 3 states that we were talking about that have only a process by which you have to apply directly to the governor in order to have your voting rights and any other rights put back in place. So that 1,600,000, that could be shift an entire election. Of course, we're talking about not the 2018 election coming up. This will directly affect, if it passes, going forward into 2020 and the presidential campaign again.
Right. And when you say affected felons, what do we mean by that? Because not all felons can have their voting rights restored.
Correct. And this is people that are eligible under certain state laws in order to get their voting rights restored. In Florida, we don't have a mechanism yet. That's what this law is proposing to do in order to, but they've already identified the people based on the proposal that are going to qualify when and if the law passes.
Right. And that would be certain types of felonies.
Correct.
Obviously. Right. All right. So there's been a long tug of war on this issue going back to when Charlie Crist was governor. What is the current process to get your voting rights restored?
So basically, it's important to understand what felonies we're talking about. And it's all felonies in the state of Florida. And it includes third-degree felonies, for example, shoplifting over $300, passing a bad check. Some people get caught up with their driver's license and have it suspended and makes it a felony if they drive again. Even tampering with a crab trap is a third-degree felony in Florida. So any one of those could automatically strip you of your voting rights. And so what this is, the process now is that you fill in an application, it goes to the governor's clemency board, but then what happened in 2007, Charlie Crist, when he was governor, tried to relax a lot of these measures. That allowed about 150,000 felons to get their voting rights restored up until 2011. When Governor Scott came in, he undid a lot of that, imposed new waiting periods, 5 years for a nonviolent felony, 7 years for other felonies. So the process has really gotten backlogged. According to the Brennan Justice Center, in 2015, there were only 2,000 applications that were processed and 20,000 more were waiting to be gone through. So that is the urgency in passing this law, we can take a look at next.
Yeah, and what will change with the new amendment?
Okay, so here's the amendment itself, and this is from the petition. And basically, you see the wording right there. Any disqualification from voting arising from a felony conviction shall terminate, and voting rights shall be restored upon completion of all terms, including parole or probation. Simply put, if you do your sentence, you do prison, parole, probation, any combination of those 3 things, then as soon as you're done, then your voting rights are automatically restored. Right. The only exception is for murder and sexual offenses. And so what the setup is going to be, where the controversy may come into play, is whether or not we believe, or the voters believe, that they want everyone of all those crimes having their voting rights restored. You may see victim advocates come out against this. You may see prosecutors and law enforcement come out against this. But the number of petitions that number of signatures they got to get this on the ballot was 766,000, and they cleared that last week.
Wow.
So they're also pushing 1 million people supporting it in the state of Florida.
All right. How many other states have our current system, and what is the trend in their states?
This was interesting because basically there's 6 different models that are out there right now. I put this graph together because these are the 3 states right now where you only have that direct appeal to the governor in order to get your voting rights restored. It's Florida, Kentucky, and Iowa. If you go across the country and look at some other states behind us, the next restrictive one would be in Alabama and Tennessee, where they have a combination where you can apply for certain restoration of rights for certain felonies. But you go to the middle of the country, Texas all the way up to Minnesota, they have a combination where if you finish your sentence, you can apply, but it's not automatic. Go to California, go to New York, then you start seeing automatic restoration of rights, which was the model that Florida would follow. If you finish your parole, probation, your sentence, and you're automatically restored. There's a couple of states in the Rust Belt, actually, that if you only finish your prison sentence, you get your voting rights back. And there's only 2 states, Vermont and New Hampshire, or Vermont and Maine, excuse me, that allow you don't lose your voting rights, period.
Right.
So you see all the different combinations across the entire United States. This is something that's been trending for a long time. But this is voting restrictions on or your right to vote being restricted. This goes back to 1869 and the Civil War. Right after the Civil War, 29 states enacted laws to strip convicted felons or convicts of their voting rights and created this mass disenfranchisement because it does divide along racial lines for African Americans and other minorities as well.
Sure, convicted of more of those types of felonies. What, real quick, what's your feeling? Do you think it'll pass?
I think it has a good chance of passing, but they need to play the politics of it correctly because they need to show that there isn't going to be irreparable harm. There was a Supreme Court study that was done and it had to get approved before it made it on the ballot. The Supreme Court found nothing wrong with the amendment. They allowed the process to go through. The Attorney General didn't object. They just asked for the input of the Supreme Court. So as long as they stress that it's not going to cost any more, no one's going to go out and start killing again, or they're going to play the politics of what kinds of crime. Not every crime is the same. So like I said, people are going to have arguments against that, but that number is clearing at 770,000. That's similar to what medical marijuana needed in 2014 and again 2016, and you saw it finally pass in 2014.
Certainly seems to be the trend to restore those types of rights. News Channel 8 legal analyst and associate producer Felix Vega joining us. Thanks so much.
Absolutely, Evan.
We'll be right back, folks.